What up, folks? It's your boy Tim again, also known as Chicago in a Corner. Once again, Joe Biden is in the news. As you can see, this video is titled, Will Gun Control Work in America, Not Elsewhere? We're going to talk about that. My first response is hell no, but we're going to go into it. Anyway, as always, I'm going to ask that you do what I need you to do. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can get these when I'm dropping these on you. At the end of the video, if you like what I got to say, go ahead and click the like. I would greatly appreciate it. And you know what? I would also appreciate if you hit dislike. If you think I'm just talking fecal matter, go ahead and hit dislike. Tell me in the comments. We will hash those out. If the comment is strong enough, we can make another video on that, and we can talk about that as well. I always follow up. So the question is, will gun control, gun bans, will that stuff work? And when I say will it work, I mean, will it work here in the United States? As you know, over the last week or so, there's been two published mass shootings. There was a 21-year-old white male in the Atlanta, Georgia area that shot up a host of Asian massage parlors. According to him, he had a sex addiction and he wanted to eradicate all temptation. So he wanted to go around killing the places he was getting sex at. So they're debating on whether that's going to be a hate crime or whatever. We made a video on that earlier. We're not going to discuss that here. Followed up that one with another crime that took place, a mass shooting at a supermarket in Boulder City, or that Boulder, Colorado. They killed 9 civilians out there, and including a police officer, one of the first responders at the scene, a father of 7. So what do we have? We have a new Democratic administration. We have 2 mass shootings. What does that call for, folks? Gun control. Give me a G, So this is what we're going with. Joe Biden is now suggesting we reinstate the assault weapons ban. He wants to put a ban on high-capacity magazines, and they want to close different loopholes that allow you to potentially purchase a weapon without going through the typical background checks and things like that. And I'm asking the question, will it work? First off, America is a unique country in a variety of ways, and we're going to cover that. But we'll first say that some of this stuff that Joe Biden wants, it actually has already passed in Congress, but you also need the Senate. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer from New York is going to put this in front of the Senate, and nobody expects it to pass. Now, keep in mind, under Barack Obama, we had a similar issue. 20 kindergartens were killed at Sandy Hook Elementary, and he tried the same thing. He started going after assault weapons and started going for a high-capacity ban, and I think Biden is going to fail just as miserably as Obama did. I don't expect this to go through. And most political analysts do not expect it to go through as well. But anyway, if something like this did go through, we're asking the question, do you think it would reduce gun violence, gun deaths? And as a liberal, I make no qualms about the fact that I do lean left, even though I can see many of the points on the right. I'm not one that is so closed-minded that I think everything liberal is peachy keen and everything right is horrible and racist, and I'm at the same time, I disagree with those who think everything left is socialist and, and downtrodden, and everything right is just awesome. I can see the middle, and that's what we often discuss here on the channel. Dems say this stuff will work. Their first response is less guns equal less violence, and they name a host of countries to support their theories. But is it that simple? The Republicans, right off the bat, here's some of the reasons I've gotten from gun enthusiasts, Second Amendment folks, Republicans, conservatives, and those on the right. One of the first things they often say is criminals will always get guns. If you ban guns, criminal will just get a gun on the street. That has a lot of validity to it. I mean, there's 330 million plus people in this country, and there is more guns than there are people in this nation. So if you ban guns, there's 300 and some odd million that are still on the street, or even more on the street, and those are out there, and you have to find a way to eventually get all of those out. You're talking generational issues. This is not something you can just pass along and get rid of right away. Will a criminal be to get a gun on the street? Yes, absolutely. But I will say that if guns are banned, it's going to immediately shoot up the value of a weapon. And proof of this is Barack Obama when he first got elected. They thought he was going to start attacking guns and taking guns away, and the price of weaponry shot up, even though there was no ban. I mean, Obama never got through a single piece of legislation, yet for a time, it cost a lot of money to purchase a firearm, particularly the assault weapons. So if you actually did get through a ban, you can only imagine how much it would cost to purchase firearms. Now, that's not to say that there's not going to be deaths and violence still happening, but I will say that if you're a kid or you're somebody living in poverty, it would be a lot more difficult to get your hands on a gun that costs $500 as opposed to $50. And you're not going to just go and kill somebody and throw a $5,000 AR-15 in the lake. You're just not going to. I mean, it's going to make you hold on to your weaponry. I mean, that's just one of the things. But I do believe strongly that for quite a while, criminals will always be able to get a gun. And the reason I believe that mainly is because the good guy can get a gun. That's where criminals generally get weapons from. The vast majority of guns that are taken from a criminal, they started out with somebody owning it legally. So the criminal either found it somewhere where somebody misplaced it, or they broke in a house of somebody who owned it legally, or they purchased it from somebody who wrongfully sold it to them. But for the most part, bad guns come from good guns. I mean, it's just the way it is. Now, I do understand that there's some things that come across the border, and we're going to talk about even getting down to the point of making your own weapon. So, the other argument that you generally hear is that if you ban guns, people will find other ways to kill. That is absolutely true as well. If you really want to kill somebody, you can use a knife, you can use a bomb, you can use poison, run them over with your damn car. That is absolutely true. The difference that you don't hear is that it is more difficult to do all of those methods. Killing someone with a knife takes strength. You're not going to walk up on somebody that's 3 times your size and stab them to death, unless you're doing it, from a very advantageous position and they don't know you're coming. Plain and simple, it's more difficult. You're not going to walk into a restaurant full of people and likely walk out of there stabbing everybody up. I mean, it's just, people are going to get away. Somebody's going to fight back. You may end up getting killed yourself. So the difference between using a firearm and using alternative methods is, first thing is it's more difficult to use them. Same thing with bombs and poisons and all of this stuff. Nothing is easier than just walking up and shooting the shit out of somebody. There's just no other easier way to do it. I mean, you can be twice my size. You can completely see me walking up on you, and there's just nothing you can do if I'm armed and you're not. No other method usually gives you that. Even if you're coming in with a car, I can jump out of the way, etc., etc. Guns make killing easy. That's why most killers choose to use a gun. Another thing they don't mention is the success rate. Not only does guns make killing easier, it also has a more lethality rate. Stabbing someone as opposed to shooting them with a hollow point. You hear from trauma surgeons, and yeah, the bullets are designed to kill. I mean, they go in you, they break up, and it just does a lot more damage than most of the other methods you would use to kill. So if you had to choose another method, I definitely believe that the success rate from choosing those methods would go down. I mean, that's just another argument. Like I said, in the comments, we can talk about this. Finally, we'll go to the new one, and that is, if you ban guns, people will find ways to make guns themselves. Are Americans that savvy? Some of them are. Just like if you ban guns, there's some Americans who would make bombs. But you would certainly eliminate lots of people. Just like if you had to create a bomb to kill somebody, there's a lot of killers in America. There are a lot of people serving time in prison that probably would not have made a bomb. They probably are not as educationally savvy. They may have not had the initiative or motivation, or some of them may have blown themselves to smithereens in the process. Bomb makers do blow themselves up. That happens all the time. Well, same thing with printing a gun. I mean, some people are going to be able to get the materials and have the savvy to use the press and all of that, what's necessary to make a gun. Others are not. I mean, and that's going to also eventually lead to you making your own bullets and all of that. And once again, just like with making bombs, it is possible to make a firearm that blows up in your hand. So to say that you're going to get the exact same kill rate with guns made in basements as opposed to guns made from professional individuals like, professional corporations like Smith & Wesson and Browning. No, it's not going to be the same. I mean, it's not to say there won't be a hell of a lot of printed homemade guns out there, but I can guarantee you they will not be anywhere near as effective as those who are making them, from a professional standpoint. And of course, similar to like meth labs and things like that, they're going to be taking down gun labs all over the place. But that's not to say that there's not going to be still a significant amount of guns in America. But if you had to make your gun, if all of the guns in America were only in the hands of people who could make them, there's no doubt that gun violence and gun crimes would go down because there would be people who would no longer have guns. But we'll just look at it, like I said, from the standpoint of will these bans, if they were able to be implemented, which I feel confident that what Joe Biden is trying to get through will not go through. But we're just examining this from, would this work? And my answer is flat out no, because of what he's trying to pass. Joe Biden is trying to get an assault weapons ban, high capacity magazine ban, and he's trying to effect background checks, have changes on background checks to make it a little bit more difficult for individuals who do not have the right or should not get a weapon to get a weapon. Will that stuff reduce gun violence and gun? Absolutely not. The main reason why is because most deaths in America are caused with a handgun. You look at what was done with the Asians in Atlanta, Georgia area, where the guy went in and committed mass murder, killed up 8 people, 6 of them Asian. Same thing in Colorado. You could do that with a handgun. Joe Biden is not even he's not even trying to ban handguns. You could walk in with a Glock in a supermarket and still score a very high tally of deaths. I mean, you got handguns that hold 17 rounds normally, and that's not assuming that you can't put a drum or something on that. So, and even if he banned high capacity magazines, you can just keep popping in 17 all day. If you walk into a supermarket with 17 in your firearm and you got, 2 other magazines taped to you, you're already talking, you're approaching 40 different wounds right there. So you could easily get a few dozen deaths, and that's just with a handgun. So banning assault weapons would not reduce gun violence, in my opinion, very much at all, because the vast majority of gun violence is not perpetrated with assault weapons. It just isn't. Also, there are other problems, I believe, that put America in a completely different light. And this is what I brought up at the beginning of the video. And this is what I mean from the standpoint of having guns in this country, because there are countries out there that have very liberal, relaxed gun laws where you can access weapons pretty easy, and they still have nowhere near the gun violence and gun deaths in America. So what's so different about America compared to a lot of other countries where you can get guns and they're not having mass shootings and they're not having all the gang violence and things that we have in America? I attribute it to 2 different things. First of all, there's a ridiculous gap in social classes in America that is something that is almost unique to America. What I mean by that is America is a capitalist country, so you can get extremely wealthy in America to the point where you cannot reach those levels in a lot of first world countries. I mean, you take a guy like Jeff Bezos or Steve Jobs, those type of guys. It's not as easy just from the tax structure and the entitlements that a lot of other countries offer to reach that level of wealth in most first world countries. However, because they have social safety nets and different things like that in first world countries, you also cannot fall so low to the bottom that you have homelessness like we do in California, where you got, blocks and blocks of tent camps because people are homeless out there in California. And that's not just in California. There are other places where you got a significant amount of homeless. Nevada is a good example. There's plenty of homelessness in Nevada, so you don't just blame it all on the high rent prices or ridiculous taxation coming out of California. There are other places where people are homeless all over America. And that's in addition to how many Americans have no health care at all, or very, little to no health care, where they got to just depend on the state for whatever they can get. I mean, there are even claims of children going hungry, all in this country where you got Jeff Bezos and, guys who are just multi-millionaires, and then you got them living maybe down the street from a tent camp. You don't normally see that in other first world countries, because there are social safety nets that prevent you from reaching rock bottom. You're going to get some type of housing assistance, food assistance. There's more of that available. Not to say you can't get some of that here, but there's more of that available in other first world countries. But at the same time, you're not going to climb up to Jeff Bezos level because the taxation is too great. So what happens is the people are moved closer together, as opposed to in America, where you can be way up on the social status ladder, or you can be all the way at the rock bottom. So that shit creates resentment. A lot of crimes, gun violence, and gun deaths are results of robberies and things like that. So you putting the dirt poor next to the super wealthy, stuff like that can happen. People, have resentments, or you work for a guy and he laid you off after 30 years with nothing. I mean, all of this type of stuff can lead to violence. And then, of course, there's the other one that also makes America very, very unique, and that is the amount of diversity in our country. You got Christians living next to Muslims, blacks living next to whites, next to Asians. I mean, everything you can imagine on the globe has some place in America. You put all that together on one landmass, and you're going to have a hell of a lot of disagreements, particularly from the religion standpoint, because most religions teach you that other religions are almost false or fake or false prophets. It's all of this stuff. Religion is probably the bane of most wars. So, with the amount of diversity in America that far exceeds virtually every country on earth, you're going to have a lot of disagreements. And in America, there's no doubt we have a significant, lengthy period of hatred in this country. Hatred of everybody, just about every race, nationality, background, religion, has somebody else in the country on the same landmass that hates you for that, what you believe in, or what you look like, or your sexuality, all of that. In America, there's just a history of hate. And all of that leads to, once again, more problems. I mean, we're still debating now if what happened in Atlanta, Georgia, about a week ago with the Asians, was that hatred or not? I mean, the guy shot up, 8 people, and 6 of them were Asian. He was targeting Asian massage parlors. He's a white guy. So we're still debating that. So yeah, America has a history of hatred. And when you look at a lot of the other countries that have easy access to firearms, they do not have that diversity. It's very easy when you have everybody on the same page. We're all Christian, we're all white. We all believe that a relationship is between a man and a woman. So we all on the same page. There's going to be less arguments. I mean, that's just the way it is. And that's what's happening in America, is that a lot of the subgroups, whereas America started out that way, Christian, white based, a lot of those subgroups now are gaining ground in different areas. I mean, you've had black presidents, you got Asians doing this, you got, Hispanics are doing this, and it's creating a lot of hatred from the other groups. I mean, it's very common now to hear Caucasian people saying that they feel like they're being discriminated against. So it is what it is. I mean, there's a ridiculous amount of diversity in the country. There's good to having diversity, and I'm actually explaining the bad. All of this leads to people getting shot, people getting pissed off at each other and just not getting along. So you put all this next to each other, a wealthy guy and you're poor, or a black guy and you're Asian. I mean, people do not agree with each other in this country, and that's the way it is. And it all leads to, like I said, people getting shot. So in my opinion, America is very unique on those levels. So I asked the question once again, would a gun ban work in America? And I'm talking about all guns. My answer, I don't think it would. I really do not. I think the pushback would be very strong. Would Americans just resort to all these other things, making their own weapons, creating bombs and stabbing each other up and all of this stuff? Yeah, I think there would be some people doing that. It's not going to be anywhere near as many of them that are purchasing guns now. So I think that, would it reduce Gun violence, yeah, I think it would. But would it stop it? No, because I mean, not in our lifetime are we going to come anywhere near taking all the guns off the street. I mean, I have ways that I believe you could reduce it, and that would be you got to shut off the spigot because buybacks and all of that stuff makes no sense when they're still making new weapons. Until you turn off the spigot of new weapons pouring into the system, anything you're doing within the system is not going to work. Also, keep in mind the countries that do successfully have strict limits on purchasing firearms is done federally. In America, because we're 50 different countries in one, 50 states, basically each being its own individual country, each state has different laws. And the problem with that is there is no checkpoint in crossing from state to state. So if you live in, say, Illinois, where they have strong gun laws or tougher gun laws, but they're surrounded by places like Indiana and Missouri and Kentucky, which have very loose gun laws, and you can cross over into that country or that state, and you can come back, and there's no checkpoint in between. There's no, you're not, like when you come into America, there's an immigration. They go through your shit, they ask you a bunch of questions, and if you're caught bringing a gun in or you're caught bringing in something that's wrong, you can be arrested. Well, you can cross in between states, and there's nothing like that. So you just simply leave your area that has tough laws, go to another area that has loose laws, get what you want, and bring it back home. Then the ban in your area is effectively useless. Whereas, like I said, the countries that have strong gun laws, there is a barrier when you come back into that country. You're not going to leave, say, New Zealand, which passed recently toughened the hell out of their gun laws after they had a mass shooting a couple years ago. Well, if you fly into New Zealand, they're going to go through your shit. They're going to put you in a metal detector. They're going to ask you a bunch of questions. And if you're caught sneaking a weapon in, you face going to jail. That's how you would successfully reduce guns or better yet, stop people from bringing guns in. You have to do something at that level. We're not even negotiating something like that in America, where we're going to do it federally and, you can't cross over from state. You don't want 50 checkpoints at every state. We don't want that, but that's the only way that you're going to pass a law in your state and that law is going to be effective, is that you're going to have to check people when they come back. Good example of that would be living in Chicago. They had a fireworks ban. People were setting off fires. They were doing all kinds of dumb shit with fireworks. So they passed a ban on having fireworks for the 4th of July. Indiana, which is less than 10 miles away from Illinois, allowed you to purchase fireworks. So people would drive into Indiana, purchase fireworks, and then drive back to Chicago where they plan to set them off on the 4th of July. What the police started doing is randomly stopping cars with Illinois license plates that were crossing the border. And they would search your car, and they caught and took a lot of fireworks from people. That's the only way you're going to stop, like I said, a gun ban. You're creating a pseudo or virtual checkpoint when you come back into the quarantine area where they have this law. And it took some fireworks off the streets, but then again, you could drive to Wisconsin or any of the other 5 states that border Illinois and also purchase fireworks. But that's how you would have to stop it. So just coming to you from a liberal standpoint, even though I can see the other side, and the question is, would a gun ban work in the United States and no place else? America? Fuck yeah. No, it would not. Unless, like I said, you did it from the standpoint where I just said it had to be federal and there would have to be checkpoints everywhere where you could actually make it so that all 50 states are operating in unison. This ban covers everywhere, and anybody coming into America's checked. All of that. They do some of that, but they don't do anywhere near all of that. And up to this point, yeah, you're not going to get a ban. Too many variables, too many factors that I just went through. But I would love to hear your opinion. And here's one I'll just drop on you. You tell me where I'm wrong in the comments. If you did want to ban guns, like I said, turn off the spigot of new weapons. Then you can start doing your buybacks. People who really like their weapons are not going to fall victim to a buyback. They're going to keep their shit. But everybody dies eventually and the gun lives on. Is your spouse or your children going to really want that gun as much as you did, or are they going to be willing to fall for the money on the buyback? Maybe they're having trouble paying their rent or their car breaks down. So you're going to take a small amount of guns off the street with the buyback. America's pawn shops is a perfect example of what happens when you offer money for guns. People do hand guns over for money. Now, if you've turned off the spigot, there's no new guns entering the country. You're just buying and slowly buying the ones that are here. You're taking them from criminals because, like we said, a criminal will always be to get a weapon. But we seize thousands of weapons from criminals every day. So now you're taking thousands of weapons from buybacks. Thousands of weapons are coming from criminals. Some weapons are failing. Some weapons are being lost or being rusted. I mean, there's all it is. With the spigot being turned off, now it's not as easy to get parts for weapons, all of that. You're compressing what's available. Once again, like I said, it's going to take something. This is something that would take at least a generation or two. It's not going to happen overnight, but that slowly that number of weapons in circulation will continue to be compressed. And as it's being compressed, the value of weapons will skyrocket. So the criminal who just wants to get a weapon on the street will suddenly start having to pay a lot more for it. You're not going to go out and pay, $2,000 to go and rob somebody for 50. It just makes no sense. And you just continue going from there. And I do believe that eventually you would get the amount of weaponry down to the point where it would still be guns available, but it would be a hell of a lot harder to get them. And people would not be just using them for just dumb shit and throwing them in a lake afterwards, because now a gun would be a very valuable tool. I mean, you don't see people throwing high-priced smartphones away because they cost so much. Well, if you make guns, start costing money like that, and like I said, you're making the paraphernalia involved in obtaining guns more difficult. So you got to make your own bullets. You got to make your own parts. You're going to also start reducing the amount of people that can do this stuff. Everybody's not going to be able to do this. Everybody's not going to want to do that. And once again, like I said, all of that would be taken into play. And as time went on, the amount of guns in circulation would decrease. We can talk about it in the comments. I'm going to go ahead and end this video. This one went a little bit long, but I would love to hear what you have to say. Tell me where I'm wrong. But I'm going to ask that you subscribe like I did in the beginning of the video. If you like what I got to say, hit the like. I'm expecting, considering my audience is right wing, I'm going to get some dislikes on this. I'm liking that. Let's talk. Chicago out.